All right, I have done, this is my fifth video on four-wheel alignment, do-it-yourself. I've talked about the different angles, toe and camber, how to measure camber, how to set up your camber machine, smart camber like this one here. I've talked about how to set up the smart string for measuring toe. I've kind of shown how you measure it. And I just touched on Castor. Castor's kind of complicated. Because like this, here's a set of wheels, extra wheels off the Miata. Well, that's not even adjusted anywhere close to being right. I've been doing those big wheels. Anyway, whoa, make it tight, probably help. So measuring camber, that's like that. Castor, you're measuring camber in the straight ahead position, then 20 degrees to the left, and then 20 degrees to the right. You do that on both sides of the vehicle, and then, according to Smart Racing Products, I love their cover picture on their manual. If both measurements are negative, then you subtract the small one from the larger one, and that's your Castor. If one is negative and one's positive, then you add the numbers together. Apparently that's the most common what you get. One is negative, one's positive. If both are positive, then you subtract the smaller from the larger, and that's your Castor. Confused yet? Yeah. So again, if both are negative, you subtract the smaller from the larger. If one's positive and one's negative, you add them up. If both are positive, then you subtract the smaller from the larger. Clear as mud, right? That is how you get, that's using the camber gauge. But you have to know where 20 degrees left and 20 degrees right is. And then when you're turning the wheel, let me get this on out of here. When you're turning the wheel, you have to be able to turn it with the weight of the vehicle on there and the weight of all the suspension. So the best way to do that is something called Castor plates, which if you go any place that has an alignment machine, they got these pins that hold this plate on ball bearings that rotates. And the last 25 years, any alignment lift you buy, there's rear Castor plates too for the rear. Well, my floor doesn't have that. And you want to be able to move it without any drag or the tire hanging up on you. And you want to know when you get to exactly 20 degrees. So there are some graduated Castor plates out there. There's some on Amazon somewhere between $150 and $200 a set. So that means you got to spend $400 to do the whole car. That's the best way of doing it. I've mentioned in another video, take a trash bag, put some silicone on it between the layers. Supposedly that works. I've not tried that yet. And if you just do one axle Castor plate, then you got to jack up the back axle with the tires loaded, with load still on the tires, to make the car level front to back. I'm hoping one of these days to have my own 4-post lift here. And I'm probably not going to buy an alignment lift because they are really expensive compared to just a regular lift, which is still expensive. And because of my limited space, I want a lift that I can move around. So I'll have to buy the Castor plates. Supposedly Harbor Freight used to have some. I cannot find them on their website. I've seen people who do videos and write-ups on different forums about doing their own alignment. They got the Harbor Freight Castor plates, and they got the graduated degrees, so you know when you get to 20 degrees. Smart Racing Products, another good picture on their string manual, they say to put a piece of tape on your dash, sit in the driver's seat, and get the wheels exactly straight forward, get the steering wheel exactly level, put a piece of tape on the wheel. And then use whatever you got to use, markings on the ground, whatever, figure out 20 degrees left, put a piece of tape so the steering wheel lines up with the mark on the dash, do the same thing to the right. Then all you got to do, when you're doing this yourself, you don't have to worry about the 20-degree thing, you just got to worry about how the tires are going to slide without catching. Just move the wheel to tape marks. I like that idea. I have not done that, but I like that idea. That's the Castor formula. It's hard to find that anywhere online because everyone says, "Oh, take it to a machine, take it to a shop to do an alignment." All right. Which brings up the next thing. What is an alignment for your car? What numbers do you want? I think I mentioned in another video. I've done the Hunter Engineering Company at Introduction, Intermediate, and Advanced Alignment School. They give you this big, huge 3-ring binder, all kinds of fancy stuff in it. One thing it has, which Hunter stopped publishing as far as I know back in 09 or 10, is 4-wheel alignment specifications 87 to 89. Every vehicle you can buy, the alignment specs are in here. They have another book, alignment specs 60 to 86. I got both those at this training 8 or 9 years ago. I don't think they make books anymore because computers. For my Porsche, well, like the Mini and this Jeep, I'm using it as a bench, and the Miata, there's a Haynes manual, there's a Chilton's manual. For the European cars, there's always been the Bentley. Bentley Publishing Company has always put out manuals for the European vehicles. There's no Bentley for the Porsche 987.1. At least I haven't been able to find it. There's the 986 has a Bentley, but no 987.1. And since it's been out of production for 11 years, I doubt there's ever going to be a Bentley for that vehicle. So what alignment do you use? Looking online, I have found what someone says is from the factory manual the dealer has. The PASM, mine has Porsche Active Suspension Management, PASM, and like tow, uncompressed total tow is plus, means the front tires are in a little bit, 5 minutes of 1 degree, plus or minus 5 minutes of a degree. And then it says the camber is supposed to be negative 15 minutes plus or minus 15 minutes. And the Castor is supposed to be 8 degrees, 30 minutes. Okay, that's the front. And the rear is plus 5 minutes, plus or minus 0.5 minutes, but that's per wheel. The 5 minutes on the front is total. That's that. But then someone from Australia printed or put online the printout from their Porsche dealer, which has totally different specifications. Totally different. And then somewhere I got this isn't it, I have a Hunter printout that someone put online for their 08 Porsche 987.1 Cayman S with PASM. Different numbers. Well, I went ahead, once you get those numbers, like the plus 5 minutes of total tow. What the heck? What's 5 minutes of a degree? Like Smart Racing Products, they send you this little chart page that has all kind of neat stuff on it, but you just have to fill in the blanks. There's still no specifications on there. I need that back. And how do you do it? Well, the Hunter machine, you can set to be in minutes a degree, decimals of a degree, 30 seconds of an inch, millimeters, 16ths of an inch. You can do all that. Well, I don't have the computer here. I need to do mine with smart strings by decimals of degree for camber and Castor, and I need millimeters for my toe measurement because I'm using string. So I found online, make sure this thing recognizes me. There, it recognized me. A website called WiseFab. WISEFAB.com. WiseFab sells toe plates, as in a piece of metal or aluminum that goes against this side of the tire, and the other side of the car, you do that, you put tape measures between them. They sell that. That's what they sell. They don't sponsor me. I've not bought anything from them. I just found their website because on their website, like for the Porsche, it said I'm supposed to be at toe 5 minutes. So where you measure at, oh yeah, that's another thing. The Hunter alignment machines are great. They're very accurate, but they assume all tires are, I think, 29.84 inches diameter. That's not true. That's how they measure their toe. It's a standard for all vehicles. In fact, the automotive industry has used that measurement since 1979. Well, I got 19-inch wheels on the Beast there, and the rim itself is actually 20 inches across where I measure at. So you put in 20 inches as your distance, and then I want to be at 5 minutes. That says I should be at 0.7 millimeter. This is the only website I found that can do that. And I can plug in the wheel diameter like 16.5 on the Miata and plug in the degrees I want. It tells me how many millimeters I need. WiseFab.com. That has been making this worthwhile, because otherwise, Smart String and everybody else, I found online measurement angle in degrees and minutes for your tire wheel size and how many millimeters, and you got to do some kind of chart, and there's some kind of another chart here. You go up from there and over to here, and I've not been able to make those make sense. And then you got to convert from decimals to millimeters. So the WiseFab has worked very well for me. But between the internet, my access to Hunter engineering stuff, and just looking around, I've got what I think are good numbers. So I made up I went to numbers on my iPad. This is a spreadsheet. Got my 4 tires, and I put down millimeters for the string out, front and back of the wheel, what the toe is supposed to be, what the Castor is supposed to be. I left blanks for camber and all that kind of stuff. I made my own log book page, and I'm going to use this from now on, because I've been writing on several different pieces of, I've been writing stuff down on this, on the Smart Racing product sheet, but it's not as good as I want it. Now I got my own sheet, and I can use it for all my vehicles. So keep a logbook. Write everything down. I mentioned in one of the earlier videos that you have to be kind of obsessive and very, very accurate to do alignments. You do. Every degree, every minute of degree, every millimeter matters. And I'm talking the 0.7 millimeters. I actually misinterpreted that until I read it again and again on that one sheet of paper. Total toe is 5 minutes of a degree. So that means between both front tires, the Porsche is not supposed to have more than 0.7 millimeter total toe. So that gives me a 0.35 millimeter on this side and a 0.35 millimeter on that side. Now, why would you want toe in to be 0.35 millimeter? That's almost nothing. Well, that gets back to what's the alignments do for you. All right. For the front tires to work good, they need to be exactly straight going down the road. In one of my earlier videos, I showed how the Miata has the steering linkage on the front of the front axle, and how the Mini has it on the back of the front axle. The Porsche, being a rear-wheel drive, two-wheel drive vehicle, has the steering arms on the front of the front axle. Someone figured out, I don't know who, I don't know when, that steering components are better when they are under tension. As in, you're sitting with the 0.35 millimeter sitting still. You start getting the front tires pushed by the back tires, they don't want to go. So they're going to spread out just a little bit. Porsche, I guess, figures a perfectly conditioned steering system, suspension system, is going to have 0.35 inches of slop in it, or 0.35 millimeters of slop, and it's going to come out that far. So your tires are straight going down the road. Anything less than that, and your toe out going down the road. Now, I'll come back to that. A front-wheel drive car, if you had it toe in to begin with, and the front tires are pulling the car, they're trying to go. They're going to actually tow themselves in more. So most of your front-wheel drive cars have a negative sitting still toe, if that makes sense. In fact, I don't have a single front-wheel, I don't have the specs for the Mini. So a front-wheel drive car is going to be toe out because the steering arms are behind the axle. Because instead of being in compression, you want the steering arms in tension, so when this car starts moving, it will equal out. Kind of interesting, huh? Driver weight affects the alignment. My BMW, when I was still at my classroom, I pulled it up on the Hunter machine. And it said I need to have 150 pounds in the driver's seat, 150 pounds in the passenger seat, 150 pounds in the back seat, and then I think 46 pounds in the trunk and a full tank of fuel to do an alignment. And then it had a ride height measurement from the bottom of the rim to the bottom of the fender. You got to be within certain millimeters to do that. Well, in years past, in my class, I'd just take my students over to the rec area and we'd get a bunch of weights from the weight room. Come back, put them in the seats, and we're good to go. A couple years ago, they got rid of the weights. People were hurting themselves. And so it took me a month or two to get my students switched between classes to where I had 3 150-pound kids in the class at the same time. I brought the car in one of those days. I told them we're going to do this. We went over alignment for a couple days, and then I knew I was going to have them one day. I brought the car in. I put all them in it, and we go measure, and we were so low, it was unbelievable. I had them get out. We still weren't high enough for the proper ride height. The springs were that bad on the BMW. Well, 188,000 miles when I got it, it would do that. I ended up replacing the struts, springs, and all that kind of stuff. And the new ones are so stiff, even with me sitting in it or anybody else in it, the car does not change ride height. Knowing your ride height, knowing what your car expects. Jaguars also expect you to have so much weight. Some Volkswagens and some Audis, there's actually a special machine or an adapter you have to put on the bottom of the cross on the Hunter lift that actually pulls the car down a certain distance. That's why on certain Volkswagens and certain Audis, you can only get it aligned at the dealer. Because last I heard, every dealership had to pay a bunch of money for that special rig to do the alignment. And they had to call Audi of North America every night saying, yep, it's locked up. Apparently some dealers didn't call to say it was locked up and no one else could use it. And they got it taken away from them. So Audi's going to cost you a bunch for alignments. Just because of that one little machine, or a little adapter for the Hunter machine. And the weight of how you normally drive does matter for alignments. Now here's how alignments can get really expensive. Again, with the toe out for rear-wheel drive, toe in for rear-wheel drive, toe out for front-wheel drive cars, there's expected to be a little bit of movement. If a vehicle, no matter who made it, no matter how it's driven, has more than 30,000 miles, there's going to be more than 0.35 millimeter slop. The parts wear. And if, like on the Porsche, when I first got it, I only had one key, and the fob didn't work. Well, instead of going to my local Ace store and getting walk in with my old key, have them make a copy, and come back out for $10. No, I had to order a special key from Porsche through the dealer. I had to take the car to the dealer to have them electronically connect the key and the car and the computer and the anti-theft and blah, blah, blah. It was extremely expensive. And I had to sit there while the dealer had my car. And they took it out for a test drive. And they come back, they pick it up on the lift, and they're doing all kinds of stuff to it. It's like, he's doing a key. Took 2 hours to program a key. Took 3 minutes for that. I saw that part. I was getting kind of upset about this whole thing. And then they come out with this multi-page estimate of all I needed done. Then I figured what they're doing. They're trying to rake me over the coals. They wanted $399.99, $400, to check my alignment and check for any wear and components. At that time, the car had 70,000 miles on it. They were going to find wear. That'd probably been a $4,000 or $5,000 alignment time they're done. Any car you go in for alignment, if it's been more than 20 or 30,000 miles since all the suspension and steering parts have been replaced, they're going to find something wrong. Just letting you know. If you're doing it yourself, you're going to find, I can't get this as tight as I want. I replaced all the suspension parts on the Miata. I can get it exactly where I want. The Porsche, I haven't replaced the parts yet. And I cannot get the camber I want or the toe I want in the rear because the parts are worn. That's how alignments can get really, really expensive. Yes, I have spent actually more money than I thought I would on this home alignment stuff, but at $400 alignment for the Porsche, I've done basically one alignment to get it as close as I can to right after wearing out a set of tires. When I replace parts, I'm probably not going to be able to afford to replace all the parts at one time. So I'm probably going to be able to do the front or the backs, and then I have to set the alignment again. Then I'll have to do the front or the back, whichever one I do second, and then set it again. So that's 3 alignments. That's $1,200 at the Porsche prices. And I've already found out that no one in this town will align a Porsche. Nope, we don't do Porsches. We do trucks. Okay, fine. So that's $1,200 that would have spent getting this car ready, and that's more than I spent on all those pieces for the alignment. Well, plus my time. But I can do the same thing in the Miata, every other vehicle I got. That's how alignments get expensive. And yes, I think I'm going to end up saving money in the end, learning to have the equipment. Yes, I spent close to $1,200 total on all the stuff for smart racing products, the fancy camber gauge and the camber holder and the strings and the fishing reels and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it gets expensive. But I do 3 or 4 alignments, then I'm breaking even. And I know my vehicle. I know it's set right. And I can sit in the car, have somebody else do measurements, or put weights in the car if I wanted to. I can get it exactly right for me. One of my videos, I talked about how to do adjustments. And I was wrong. The Subaru does have a front camber adjustment. There's an eccentric bolt in the bottom. I just forgot it was there, and I haven't been underneath that car in a long time. There is a front camber adjustment on the Subaru. I was wrong. For anybody out there who thinks it's a Subaru hater, I'm sorry. Front-wheel drive cars, Honda, for the most part, you can adjust rear camber and rear toe. A lot of other front-wheel drive vehicles, especially minivans, there's no adjustments of any kind in the back. So if you've had an incident or hit a bad pothole, whatever, and caused things to go out just a little bit, there's no adjustment. What you have to do, they actually make shims for this, is you have to pull the whole brake and hub and bearing assembly out get down to the spindle, pull the spindle off, and there are shims that you can knock the teeth out to make it tilt whichever way a toe and camber combination you want and put it all back together again. So if you have one of those vehicles, I doubt anybody doing their own alignment is going to be doing it on a minivan. But if you do, there is a shim for that. It's a plastic shim. And most places that do alignments will probably sell you a shim. I talked about eccentrics in one of my videos and how you adjust them. The Ford trucks, the F-150s especially, and the Expeditions, they had no adjustments available on the lower control arm. But you can buy a special tool that you pull the bolts out and you got to put a cutter in there and you twist it with a wrench and it'll make a groove on the front and back mount for the lower control arm in the front. And then you can buy eccentric bolt kits that allow you to adjust your camber and Castor on the Ford trucks. The Chevy trucks in the 90s had the exact same thing you had to do to the upper control arm. So if you have one of those vehicles, I can't make adjustments. You can, but you got to spend some time and money doing it. There's still kits out there. Now, what is just right for you on your car? I loved the way my Porsche handled when I had a whole bunch of camber in the front, but I did not like at all that I went through a set of front tires in 9,300 miles. So I had a bunch of negative camber, and I got new tires. The tires have a higher wear rating, so that should help a lot by itself. But I've also pulled the camber out as far as I can, which on this car, I forget what I was at. I'm between negative 0.5 and 0.8, I think, between the two sides. But Porsche says I can go as much as 0.25 negative. I can't do that because my lower control arms are not, I can't, the slots in the top of my struts won't let me move it that far out. So I need new lower control arms. You can set a vehicle up for traction. You can set it up for super long tire life. And if you go for super long tire life, you're going to get better miles per gallon as well. Most cars since the mid-60s, because of Ralph Nader's Unsafe at Any Speed book, are made, enforced by lawyers at every car company. If you go into a corner too fast, the car never, ever, ever will the back end come around on you. That's pretty much inviting a lawsuit. So every car sold in the last 40 years, they try to make it so the car is just going to push into a corner straight ahead. You're going to still hit something, but you're going to hit it straight ahead instead of hitting it backwards. That's called understeer. Well, to get rid of understeer, you add more camber. You tilt the front tires in more and more, so when you turn, the tire gets all the way on the tread on the ground. You want negative camber for better turn-in. What most car companies do, take the Porsche. They say 0.25 degree leaned in at the front, which isn't very much at all. But the rears are 1.5 degree, and the big tires are on the back. Porsche wants the back end to stick no matter what, and the front they just skid. They don't get sued that way. When I was autocrossing, sure enough, it was skidding like crazy. So this thing, the Porsche needs 1.5 degrees, maybe 2, to make it so when you turn the wheel, it's going to turn right now. That's something you have to decide. You're doing alignments. If you go between 0.5 degree to 1 degree negative camber on the front, you should have a pretty good road and fun track day front camber. Now, like the Miata, you can't get much more than 1 degree unless you replace the lower control arms and the ball joint. It won't do it. The Porsche, you're not supposed to get more than about 1 degree because it's designed so not to have that much. That's camber. Castor, 4.5 degrees positive Castor will give you very good stability on the road. The higher you get, the more stable you get. but also the more, if the tire's leaning in a curve, and it's leaned in, and you go to turn the wheel, it's going to be riding up on the edge of the tires. And that's going to wear your tires more. So the more Castor you get, the more it rides up on the edge. The Porsche's at 8 degrees. The Miata, I think, is at 4.5 degrees Castor. 4 to 8, depends what you want. If you want a quick turning vehicle, keep it between 4.5 to 5. You want a high-speed stable down the highway at 140 miles an hour, take it to 8.5 degrees Castor. Camber and Castor. Tow, you want 0. You want 0 tow when going down the highway. So if it's a rear-wheel drive vehicle, you're going to be tow in a 16th, a 32nd. You got to figure that out. But the factory specs are normally get you, with all new components, get you just right for being a tire even going down the highway. If you have a little car, Miata, WRX, whatever, and you just want to go attack some back roads, instead of going 0 tow, make it so you're a little bit tow out. In the front only, not the back, just the front. A little bit tow out on the front going down the highway. It will make it so when you just twist, just wiggle a finger a little bit, the car turned. It's going to turn in really quick. If you go tow out in the rear, it's going to come around on you. Don't do that, especially under heavy braking. It will not be stable under heavy braking with negative or positive tow out on the rear. Keep the rear towed in just a little bit and keep the rear camber up, and you'll be good. Like I said, in the Miata, my weight makes a difference. So I try to do alignments with me in it. I do measurements with me in it. And that's up to how you want to do it. If you ride with somebody all the time, having both of you in the vehicle when you do an alignment might be a very good idea, or your equivalent weight, because then the car is going to handle perfectly and be tire wear set up perfectly for your normal load. And then, of course, there's tire wear. We've covered this before, but these tires are a set of rock hard Kumos I bought almost 6 years ago for the Miata. No tire wear at all, but there's no grip at all either. If these tires have no wear, and I was running pretty aggressive alignment on the Miata, but the car stood on light. It's only a 2,000-pound car. Check your tire wear. Check if you're even across, that kind of stuff. Alignments can be fun to do, but you can get yourself in trouble pretty easily too. I think Colin Chapman said it best when someone asked him why he doesn't make Lotus cars with adjustable suspension. And his reply was something along the lines of, "Are you crazy? Look how bad people can screw up a Weber carburetor with one screwdriver. I'm not going to give them a whole bunch of tools to go screw up the suspension." So I can understand that. And if you're doing your own alignments, you're probably at the point where you think you know what you're doing, and you just need a little things like information about where to convert from decimals to 30-seconds or 16ths to millimeters. Things like that really help me. That's what I hope this video does for you. It's keep a logbook, make up your own sheets, find a system you like, whether it's Smart Camber, or Smart String, or Smart Products, or whatever else. WiseFab. I've not tried their stuff. What works for me, because I have four-wheel independent suspension on the Porsche, the Miata, and the Mini, I need something that I can put around the car and move the car front to back while doing my adjustments. There's a whole lot of people that just put jack stands and pull PVC pipe around their car and do it. Perfect. You saved a bunch of money. But you cannot move the vehicle when you do that and to get a repeatable measurement. I try to make a sales pitch. Have fun with the alignment. Always do a test drive before and a test drive after you do your thing. Don't just, it's perfect. I'm not going to drive it till I got to go 100 miles away at 90 miles an hour. That might not be the best time to find out you did a bad alignment. Anyway, hopefully this helped you some. And I'm going to have one more video on this because I'm actually surprised. This is my 4th or 5th video, and nobody has commented at all, which is fine. But no one said, how can you do alignment without knowing the Ackerman angle is? Or what's your steering axis? I'm going to get to the theory and some of the crazy things with alignments that you don't need to know to do alignment, but people use that a lot. Well, what's your Ackerman angle? We'll get to that later.